Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Make Mine Mayday, the show all about Spider-Girl and her world. I'm Zach Joyner, the webmaster of Spidey-Dude.com and the executive producer of the Spidey Dude Radio Network. This episode, we're going to be covering issues 93 through 96 of the first volume of Spider-Girl. And as always, I am joined by Kelly McDaniel.
Hi. It sounded like you forgot my name for a second.
No, I was trying to click. I was removing the overlay. I didn't forget.
Where are you? Because it's just me on the screen right now.
Yeah, right now I just then you got me, of course. Hello, I'm Zach Joyner, your friendly neighborhood webmaster and host of the co-host of the program, co-host with Kelly. So, hello everybody. As we get people on, we'll get started. But yeah, so welcome back to this episode of Make Mine Mayday. I'm excited to cover these 4 issues. Are you, Kelly?
I mean, this has one of my favorite silly stories. It's actually very heavy, and we'll talk about it, but it's got one of my favorite stories of the whole thing, and we'll go into it because I don't think you've got over my notes, but I have a lot to say. I have a lot to say.
Kelly always has a lot to say, if you have not noticed.
Wow.
Comes to Spider-Girl, she always has a lot to say. It's not like he's lacking for things to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was not meant to be an insult. I'm sorry. That was meant to be endearing. I'm sorry. That was.
It's fine.
So, we got already a couple of comments. Yes, and hey Zach, hey Kelly, Mr. Comics, one of our new our new subscribers. I also would be remiss not to mention it, and I think
Are you going to mention his? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to mention his YouTube page. Go to YouTube. I think it's youtube.com/MrComics89. I think that's his YouTube page.
Oh, I was going to talk about his. He did a painting, a Spider-Girl painting. It's on his Facebook or Instagram.
Oh, really? Okay, that's awesome. He just subscribed to the channel, and I was checking his stuff out. He's done a few unboxing videos I saw the other day.
Nice.
Also, I did want to mention that we do have some new patrons.
New patrons.
Yes. We got Vinkman, Scott, Jurgen, and Greg, but Phoenician and I think it's Kaylee is how that's pronounced. Kale. I don't know.
Kaylee, Kale. I don't know.
Yeah,
Please tell us how to pronounce your name.
I have messaged them. Hopefully they'll get back to me before the next episode. I told them they were going to start getting their names read this week. So, they became patrons this week. So thank you for your subscription to patreon.com/Spidey Network. We got some more stuff, especially in the month of March coming. I guarantee it. So that is really, really exciting. But yeah, that was the first new patrons we've had in a while. So that's awesome.
Yeah, awesome. So while we're waiting on people to come on in, we have some housekeeping because you have an editor's note for the last episode.
So Kelly and I literally were talking right after we got done recording, and
when you realized
it was like, oh no, I forgot something. So to kind of briefly recap. There was a plot point where the Spider Girls were saving the Spider Shop, and they're the high school group and everybody were the underdogs were coming together to save the Spider Shop. Well, that's definitely an allegory for the fandom and them coming together and saving Spider Girl. And I think that was a very subtle way of doing it, and I cannot believe I missed it in my notes and in my discussion and even in my recap. So they're rallying together to stop that save that evil corporation. I'm using the air quotes. Kind of like how the fans, of course, saved it from the corporation of Marvel. So sorry, guys. Last week was a crazy week for the both of us, and both of us missed it. But I especially missed it because I was the one that was like realizing it right after we got done recording. So, because I know that was something that they stuck in there on purpose. And so, but you have some news about Pop in a Box there, Kelly. The bane of our
so obviously, the 18th came and went. It's now February 24th at the time of us recording this episode.
Yes.
And no Pop in the Box. Nothing has been shipped out. According to what I've heard, and I've heard multiple little things because they can't keep their story straight. It's either going to be July, which is a full year since the pre-order, or September, which then that's way too freaking long. I honestly have no clue, and I should have stayed on them and bugged them every day like I promised, but I'm burned out by this. Also, I really needed to focus on my own job instead of like, because it is almost a full-time job to stay on top of PIB to at least get them to answer us.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it is so frustrating. This has been the most frustrating experience.
Yeah.
And I know we both were telling people to get this, and then
I feel horrible. Like if I had known, like honestly, truly, if I had known that this was going to wind up like, there would be international sellers, and we could get it elsewhere, I would have looked for those.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly just want because really the difference right now is the sticker. And I know for a fact that they're actually shipping out other items. They're not this delayed on anything else. So it's not a sticker issue like I thought. This is just straight up stupid. I really don't know what's going on. I feel horrible for anybody that pre-ordered it on Pop in a Box. You can get an international version pretty much everywhere now. I think even local comic shops have gotten them from, there's an Australian retailer that ships worldwide, Aussies. So it's like at this point, screw it.
I'm at that point now with it because you can't tell me that. I'll believe it when I see the whites of Mayday's eyes.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I didn't get this off eBay back in December.
Exactly, and it shouldn't have taken that. Had they been honest and upfront and said, even said if they had given us it, listen, if they'd even told us supply chain issues are a thing right now and we can't get our hands on
there's no communication. There's zero communication unless we are bugging them, and I'm talking about it feels like I have to bug them 10 days straight before they get an answer. And I know for a fact that they've got to know me by name. I've literally sent emails to everybody in IHG, which is the owner of the company.
Listen, you get Kelly, you get her to where she's fighting mad, and she's been fighting mad over this because
I work in corporate. This is not how this works. This is not customer service. This is not what you're supposed to do.
You train, you help train people on how to do, you've done it in the past where how to operate in customer service. It's not like you don't have an experience with that. So I did want to point out Mr. Comet's comment. He has a huge lot of Spider-Girl 1 through 50 coming from eBay, including What If 5, which is super exciting. That is awesome, dude. That is incredibly awesome. You're a very, very lucky man. I sincerely hope that they're in pristine condition, and I hope that there's an unboxing video. And if there is, then we'll link it here on the channel.
Oh, yeah, totally.
There is some spider history we'll talk about. Caitlin wants you to rip and tear until it's done.
I mean, this is my thing. I think it's very taxing. The rip and tear stuff, I think it's really taxing to constantly keep saying that. I'm trying my best not to be negative all the time.
Right.
It's unfortunately, this is very frustrating. And I have done my best to be as kind and nice as possible about it.
Right.
But at some point, it's just insulting, and it's insulting to the fans, and it's leaving a bad taste, because I can tell you right now, when we get them, if we actually get them, ever, they're going to sit there and then state that, we were so horrible to them, or we didn't appreciate them, or whatever, so they don't want to do any more Spider-Girl stuff with PIAB, when it's
no.
We need to, it's all on them and how they've treated us, and it's not just us. They've done it to other people with other pops too.
Right.
They lie. That's the issue. They're just straight liars.
Yeah, they're taking people's money and not delivering what is expected
in a timely manner. Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be different if there was communication all along the way. but because they don't communicate, because they're not being timely, that's the issue. So, I think until we get a substantial update, this probably will be our last update for a little while.
Yeah, unless I can get a solid answer.
Yeah.
Or we get like an apology. Honestly, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm sure we'll be back to recording in July.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about it closer to July. But like, as we have stated, we're going to take the month of March off, minus maybe an extra, like one episode here, here or there. I know April, we're not really going to I think April is our little last planet standing, and then we'll start back up with Amazing in May.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start taking a little break anyway.
Yeah, we gotta get some recharged. During that break, I'll be working on. We'll have more ASM Classics. Season 2 is gonna be launching. I've got some interviews that I'm trying to nail down and get conducted, so that'll be probably for the month of March. Won't be necessarily for this yet, but I am trying to nail some stuff down on that front, but definitely for the other show on the network as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, like we'll still, like, clearly we're not going anywhere, but we are trying to take, especially where we're going through the different volumes. Mm-hmm. Different titles, we do want to take a little bit of an extended break just to rest, recharge, give you guys time to spread the show out, especially now that there's like this thing that you can kind of binge listen to or binge watch on YouTube.
Exactly.
And help spread the word, spread the gospel of Mayday, and
let us create the gospel of Mayday. Sorry.
And also, just give us time to kind of get our bearings, because
exactly. And I've got literally tonight. We have the next episode, the next audio edition that I'm releasing. I thought I released it on Monday, but it did not release because WordPress. But yeah,
it was a holiday.
Yeah, I took a holiday. WordPress did.
Yeah.
So we'll get caught up on all the audio editions. Speaking of which, if you're an audio listener, I should have given this disclaimer earlier, but this is a live show. We do live stream these shows, so any references to those visual aids are because we're live streaming them on YouTube. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, as well as leave us a review on your favorite podcasting catcher. So speaking of which, I checked earlier. I didn't see anything on Apple, so I haven't got anything lately. I got one for Clone Saga Chronicles, the show we haven't updated over a year.
That's okay.
That's fine.
I mean, it's Apple.
It is.
So,
it is. Speaking of Clone Saga Chronicles, there's something I covered a lot on Clone Saga Chronicles that's pertinent to this episode. What a
Spider history time. Yes.
It is. Yeah, so, okay, kids, I'm going to educate you on a big plot point that's going to be running kind of through these. So during the Clone Saga, Spider-Man Clone Saga, there was a guy named Judas Traveler. He showed up and was trying to understand the nature of good and evil, and he dressed like a bad Steven Tyler 80s hairband reject. He's unimportant, truthfully, to this story, but one of his associates was the Scrier, and he was someone who showed up a lot throughout that period of time. Eventually, he was kind of portrayed as this omnipotent being, all-knowing, all-powerful, hooded, cloaked being that was all white, and kind of just was a presence in the books, but very mysterious. He always was in the shadows, kind of like Kaine. So if Kaine was in the shadows, Scrier was in the shadows. There was a lot of shadowy men during the Clone Saga. It was very much a trope during that period. But later on, Tom DeFalco revealed that Scrier was not just one man. It explained how he could be in multiple places at once, right? But he was, in fact, not an omnipotent being, but a brotherhood that Norman Osborn had infiltrated as a secret society in Europe. He assumed a leadership role, and their job was to keep tabs on Judas Traveler, the Jackal, and the Parker Bros. After Norman was driven crazy by the Gathering of Five, he was grabbed up and he rehabbed them. He was rehabbed by them. They were kind of like the League of Assassins, but they also worshipped a demigod that called himself Scrier. That's where they got the names. That was actually seen in a Silver Surfer issue that actually was released after the Clone Saga, written by John Mark DeMatteis. So that hopefully gives you some context for the character of Scrier. Why? Because we're going to get into Spider-Girl 93. And I have the breakdown of Spider-Girl 93. So
you do. You forgot the title, so I did add the title for you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Very important. It's a very important title.
So Spider-Girl 93, the breakdown by me. I'll do the first breakdown, then Kelly's going to do the middle 2 issues, and then I will do the last breakdown. So
if he wanted the Scriers, anything that had to deal with Clone Saga, he has asked for.
It warms the cockles of my heart. All right, so this was released on December 7th, 2005, with a cover date of February 2006. The title of the issue is called Something Osborn This Way Comes, written by Tom DeFalco, art by Ron Frenz and Sal Buscema. Our issue opens with Mainframe calling Mayday to the proverbial principal's office, so to speak, after she disobeyed the direct order from him in last issue in front of J2 and Stinger. He wants to determine her future with the Avengers, and J2 is shocked, and Stinger just kind of wants to understand what was going on with Mayday at the time. J2 is willing to give her Mayday the benefit of the doubt, and Stinger feels that they can handle this without a formal hearing, but Mainframe storms off. May, throughout all of this, isn't really taking it seriously, and Stinger rightfully chastises her for it. Of course, they're down a few people because this takes place after Last Hero Standing and after the events of that particular series. The Avengers are kind of having to rely more on their reserves than they were before, because they were a lot of injuries and people were in the hospital, et cetera, or they're in rehab.
I mean, they did lose Captain America.
Yeah, and like American Dreams obviously taking time to mourn the loss of her hero, Captain America. So that's also why Dream's not there. But so Stinger continues to inquire about the Osborn situation, because she'd given her some intel about Normie, and Normie has been obviously avoiding her for these last few issues. But Mayday then makes an excuse and heads out and leaves. Meanwhile, Kaine and Whedon are discussing that same Osborn situation, and Whedon wants Brenda to spy on Normie, and she's obviously very uncomfortable. Agent Whedon doesn't want her to have any regrets. I paused for dramatic effect. Back at school, May and Davida are talking, not taking, while May is working on homework. Davida wants May to cover for her while she goes out because there's a house party that's being conducted on a school night. Mayday kind of objects. This is kind of ironic because she's like, "You want me to lie?" When Mayday's been on.
Okay, it's not ironic. We'll talk about it after, but
yeah.
I know. I understand where May's coming from, and I will defend this because this is a serious thing. I don't like it. Didn't like it in high school when my friends asked. I don't like it now. So
I like it. I understand where May's coming from. I just, there was a little irony to the fact that she was being asked to lie, and she's obviously in her head about things because she's really upset that she's having to lie to people about Normie, especially. So May takes off and kind of broods later when she sees a goblin. She thinks in her brain that this is Normie. Meanwhile, Brenda is trying to convince Kaine that she can't, in fact, spy on Normie when Kaine has a precognitive flash. We see some hooded men with white faces. He also saw Spider-Girl. Next page. And the Green Goblin is taking on some thugs, and he lifts a tractor trailer? They stop and fire bullets at him, and he throws a tire back at them. Mayday shows up and tells him to kind of ease off when he excitedly tells her about her new powers, basically revealing to May that this is not, in fact, Normie. This is her Uncle Phil. Mayday Spider Sense starts to go off, and we get a full-page splash of Venom. No, it's not
Venom. Dusk. What is his name?
Eggs. Well, if it was Dusk, it'd have been a full fate,
it's bit of old fandom history back when people would call him Dusk because there was Dusk on. I think it's this issue's cover, right?
Yes. This issue's cover's got the multi arms,
and it says
Deadly is the Dusk,
and Dusk is a character when it's a special suit that Peter wears in one point of the 616. So everyone kind of used the name Dusk to talk about this Venom because he doesn't want to be called Venom. But we'll get into how he can't figure out a good name.
If you want to hear more or see more about Dusk, a good place to go is SpidermanCrawlspace.com this weekend with Kelly talking about the Slingers issue of Amazing Spider-Man, the dot issue, and that's where one of the Slingers is Dusk. So based on the costume that Peter wore during the Identity Crisis storyline that she was just talking about.
Yep.
So meanwhile, back at the Parker house, we see Christy, MJ's cousin from the Jerry Conway Spectacular run. She's going to stay with Peter and MJ while she gets her own place. She's been hired by Normie. It's a bit of a deep cut for those that don't know, and they say this in the dialogue. She was once Normie's nanny after his dad died in the early 90s. Peter and MJ are caught a bit off guard. She also had a crush on Peter back in the day, so it's kind of funny when she's like, "You looking good, Peter." I'm like, "Oh, I understand that reference." Back at the
Hurricane Christy.
Yeah, Christy. She's a bit of a mess. Back to the other action. Mayday is trying to talk to Normie, but of course they're kind of, play. I wouldn't call it play fighting, but they are kind of duking it out a little bit. Mayday gets filled in on the situation. Normie wanted to upgrade Phil's tech and use it for good, and Normie insists that he's in control of the symbiote, but Mayday is obviously not feeling that she's like that this is a true statement. Meanwhile, while they were talking, the Goblin finishes off the bad guys when Kaine shows up talking about the Order of the Goblin and the Brotherhood of Scrier. Order of the Goblin was a subsect of the Scriers that were completely devoted to Norman because there were still elements of the Scrier organization that weren't necessarily.
Yeah, and this is where we get Alon.
Yes. So Brenda has also followed Kaine, Kaine is acting manic and doesn't make any sense to anybody other than me and Kelly. Mayday's phone has been ringing on and off throughout the fight and the conversation, and Normie and May are going to assist, or running off to assist Phil. She thinks that the phone call is from Davida, but it's actually the Avengers, and Mainframe is pissed. So he then goes to his chambers where he decides to go talk to the Wizard of Oz, a.k.a. Tony Stark, to sound off for some advice. But instead of giving sound advice, because Tony has...
You went to the wrong person for sound advice.
Exactly. Tony basically says, you're not doing a good enough job, so I'm taking over. He's enlisting Hawkeye, Ant-Man, Scott, not Hank, Scarlet Witch, and his personal bodyguard. Meanwhile, Kaine continues to fight the Goblin when Normie comes in and interrupts. Brenda thinks it's Venom because, come on, he looks like Venom because he's even got the spider insignia. Mayday steps in between Kaine and Phil, telling them to grow up and to stop fighting. Normie takes Brenda aside and tells her his secret, and she does not take this well. Kaine is super pissed and accuses Normie of being behind his vision when Mayday touches his hand, revealing to the world and to her that she will be killed by a hooded man with some spikes. Mayday sees it. Kaine tells her in no uncertain terms she must stop being Spider-Girl. To be continued. Kelly, your thoughts?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think most of the story kind of tells itself. There's not like a whole lot involved, but really it's like, I get why May feels uncomfortable with Davida, and I know that like it's trying to be set up like, oh well, she's hidden this secret about Normie the whole time, but the thing is that she trusted Normie to kind of take care of this himself because he said, hey, I've got this, I have good intentions for this, versus Davida wants her to lie so she can go party and do things that she's not supposed to do as a teenager on a weeknight that her parents aren't cool with. And it's just, there's different intentions in that lie. And so I understand because I refused to do this in high school for my friends and would tell them that it's disrespectful. Not just to like their parents, but also the person they want to lie. It's just not cool. But let's see. I think the only thing I would really want to talk about this issue with is just like, I don't know. I might have to talk about it later, but it's, Normie is a big dork. And I really appreciate and am relieved that he brought Christy in, because like we'll talk more about that later and why she's important and why he did that. But to me, it shows a lot of like maturity and forethought. Like he's really thinking this through. And, he knows he needs someone around him that can kind of tell him like it is when he needs it. And, it later on we'll learn about like Christy is kind of more of a failsafe when it comes to the formerly murderous alien that's to him.
Right.
But, he didn't have enough foresight to, like, maybe think that Brenda wasn't going to take that very well. Because, like, dude, that's such a dramatic, like, I'm going to tell you who I am while we're fighting things. Look, it's me. You should be happy. Like, no, because she's not stupid. Like,
right.
We'll get more into, like, this side of Normie that I enjoy, but he is a very smug dork.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is a plot point that starts here and really goes through the rest of the volume, and you'll understand by the time we get to the end why. But yeah,
like, look, like I'll be honest, like once we start going with him as Venom. Or him in the symbiote, like it's a lot of fun. Like honestly, like 94 and 95, as we'll talk, like it's one of my favorite stories because I wish we could have gotten more of him trying to be a superhero, because like it's not like he's inept, like he doesn't struggle like Phil. He does think things through, but there's this smugness, and it's like, dude, you're not some veteran, like.
It'd be like, okay, it'd be like, if you remember the brief time, there was a very, very brief time in the 80s that Harry tried to be a hero goblin.
Yeah, no, yeah, and it's very similar. Like, to me, it almost, like, I almost want to say, like, when he acts this way, like 94, 95, it's almost like a mixture of Peter and Harry, and I'm just like, so is Liz not involved, and this is just her son? Because that's literally how he acts.
He does act that way, very much so, very, very much so.
And it's, I mean, I enjoyed it. So, speaking of which, do you have any thoughts about this issue?
So again, Normie should have communicated this beforehand, obviously.
Communication, what's that?
Yeah, communication goes a long way. The other thing I also briefly want to touch on, because if this is like your first time watching or first time listening to an episode and you're just, listening to the latest episode and then going back and catching up, we cover a lot of Kaine's backstory, particularly in the Dark Devil episode. But the precognitive flash is that Kaine is a deformed clone of Peter, and as such, he has certain abilities that are augmented. So instead of having a spider sense that warns him of danger, Kaine has these very painful, vivid visions and precognitive flashes. So with Mayday being able to see this, it also shows the evolution of the spider sense from Peter to Mayday and how much more sensitive that spider sense is.
But this is the only time she sees it.
Right. But because, like, it's like they got synced up for that one time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's not something that Peter had ever experienced, because there was, Kaine was getting those flashes during the Clone Saga, but Peter had no idea what he's seeing. So it just goes to show the minute, small differences between Peter's spider sense and Mayday's. So very subtle thing, and you probably wouldn't notice that unless you knew the history of Kaine and why his powers are the way they are. So
yeah.
All right, I turn that over with that to you, Spider Girl 94.
Yes. Yeah. So, cover date is March 2006. It was released on January 5th, 2006, and it's called Old Soldiers. So May can't get the vision out of her head after a sleepless night. Her mind is still on how she felt the pain from Kaine's vision and thinks about what she needs to do. She could stop being Spider-Girl, or she can learn everything about the Scriers and try to prevent the vision from coming to fruition. She heads downstairs, planning to talk to her dad about the Scriers when, well, Hurricane Christy is in the kitchen cooking. All the things, it looks like, particularly crepes, and destroys Mary Jane's kitchen in the process. And this is a bit of character development for anyone who isn't aware of Christy. As we stated, she's Mary Jane's cousin who came to live with them at one point and even lived in Aunt May's house when there was like a boarding house situation.
Yes.
And her most known storyline is her eating disorder.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah. So
about that. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah. So, at least I hope that this is more of like really good character development, and it's not like she's pushed, because it looks like she's cooking all the things. So it's almost to the point of like, it looks like she might be back to binging levels, but I don't think that's where they were going here. I think they were going to show that, she's kind of still conquered her eating disorder. But from the looks of that kitchen, what is she doing? So
let's dirty up. That'd be like my daughter coming in and trying to cook. That's how I kind of feel about that scene.
I think that's exactly what that scene is. But I wrote, geez, Christy. So anyway, Christy leaves the kitchen an absolute mess as she is on her way to work to Osborne Chemicals. Which, has it been Osborne Chemicals this whole time? And we've just called it Oscorp, or is this the first time that we see it's called Osborne Chemicals?
This is, I wish Bertoni were here because this has been Bertoni's biggest pet peeve. It wasn't until around this time that they started calling it Oscorp, but it wasn't until after the films came out that it became much more commonplace. It really started with the 90s show. That's who created the phrase Oscorp, but usually it was either Osborne Chemical or Osborne Manufacturing.
Okay.
Or Osborne Industries. That's the name in the comics.
I believe we've seen it prior, Osborne Industries,
yes,
leading up to this particular issue, and this is the first time we see Osborne Chemicals.
Yes.
Someone can call me out if I'm wrong and I've just skipped over it.
Right.
But yeah, so I think that's because that always struck me as like chemicals. But May isn't really sure if she should warn Christy about the symbiote or warn the symbiote about Christy. Which I think that was Normie's plan all along in the first place.
Right.
So at the Avengers compound, J2 is sparring with Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch as Cassie talks to her dad, because Tony's whole idea about getting the crew back together after the events of Last Hero Standing honestly screams like midlife crisis to me and to Cassie. And a lot of these Avengers that have been out of service for a really good bit probably shouldn't go immediately back into the field. And so Cassie is very cautious.
I don't know. Scarlet Witch was in a coma last week. I mean,
well, no, that's what I wrote. I was like, even Scarlet Witch was in a coma. I think like it was like we could push it to maybe 3 months ago. Like, right. This really doesn't seem like the best plan. So even Mainframe seems pretty apprehensive about the situation and talks to the Bodyguard, aka we've kind of already blown that, it's Rhodey, but not Rhodey, because we learned that Tony is using his cyborg-esque friend as a mouthpiece and talking through him, which creeps me out. It feels weird. We'll learn why it's weird later, like through these 2 issues, but it literally, this is like Jordan Peele Get Out levels of weird. As you guys know, Rhodey is War Machine. Rhodey is Tony's best friend. Rhodey is not a cyborg.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Right.
And also, like,
This has been a lingering plot thread. The mystery of Tony's bodyguard has been one of those things in MC2 has been kind of a dangling thing for a while.
yeah, because May calls him Fred because she doesn't know his name.
Because
Yeah,
because he doesn't have a superhero name. Like, what bodyguard? What member of Tony Stark's entourage does not have a superhero name? Even when he was Rhodey, he was War Machine. I don't understand. Super Rhodey?
Maybe the last human movie he ever watched was The Bodyguard.
I mean, he's a Whitney Houston fan.
He is a Whitney Houston fan.
That's what my headcanon has accepted now.
Anyway, at Midtown High, Moose is talking to Courtney about how his dad is finally starting cancer treatments, but is refusing to take medical leave from his job. And Moose is concerned that this isn't the wisest choice for his father to do to get better, which Courtney tells Moose that, this is new for his dad too. And his dad needs to find, the cancer journey that works best for him and take it one day at a time. This makes May think about her parents and how upset she'd be if anything happened to them. Unintentional foreshadowing. Same. And she figures the same thoughts. That these are probably the same thoughts they have whenever she goes out into her webs. And May then thinks back and goes, maybe I should give up this Spider-Girl thing, especially with the Scriers situation going on. But sometimes the smartest choice is not the right one. And she knows that giving up and kind of not being Spider-Girl anymore is not the right one. It's not right to run away. So we get back to Avengers. Tony is speaking through the body of Rhodey and tells the Avengers that he's learned from former employees that have clearly broken NDAs that Normie is making weapons and clearly looking to start up a life of crime again. So instead of doing the smart thing and asking, I was like, I guess they're not direct competitors at this point, but like he literally could just go to the business as Tony Stark and ask Normie what's going on, set up a meeting and do this a little bit better. But no, he wants the Avengers to to spy on private citizens for no good reason, based solely on rumors, because he has not seen any of this himself. And Tony, again, speaking as Rhodey, seems to not trust Spider-Girl. And I wrote, again, this screams midlife crisis to me. Tony, stop. And I also wrote, also talking through your dead friend is really morbid and weird. Stop. Get a life. So Scott totally does as asked, no question, and gets Ants to spy on Normie, who is talking to his fiance and friend, talking to Phil about how Brenda has been asked by Whedon to spy on him and report back about the weapons, and if he hears about the symbiote, there's going to be a lot of trouble. Brenda doesn't know what to do, and she's really upset by everything, clearly, and understandably so. But Normie is super calm and says that, he has a plan for like everything, and he has a plan to even get her out of the program with Whedon so she doesn't have to deal with the government agent stuff again. And the Ants then report back to Scott about the symbiote being there, attached to Normie, and, well, things go south fast.
Things escalate quickly.
Yeah, they do. Stinger calls Spider-Girl to make sure she's all right. Because, last time Stinger talked to Spider-Girl, she asked her to spy on Normie. And now they know Venom is there. And Venom is technically a serial killer alien. Makes sense. So anyway, Stinger is worried about Spider-Girl. To make sure she's all right, and tell her that they are sending a team to apprehend Normie after finding out that he's harboring a serial killer. So May starts freaking out. she's kept Normie's secret for weeks now, and while she isn't on board with this whole thing and doesn't quite trust that Normie is in full control, she does still need to warn her friend. Normie won't answer his cell phone, so she starts heading to the staircase to change and head over when she runs into Moose. Moose wants May's advice on his situation with his dad, and May agrees with Courtney. Moose's dad needs to live his life on his own terms, and just because the most logical choice is staying home and focusing on his health, it doesn't mean that it's the right choice for him. Courtney overhears and is a bit confused and hurt that Moose would listen to May, but not her. And I wrote, that's fair, Court, because rude, Moose. So the Avengers get to Oscorp, and Christy tells Normie that he has very important visitors he can't brush off. So Normie greets them like a dork, and like he literally says, "How can I help these fine gentlemen and lady?" Which is smug, just smug dorkiness and pretentiousness, and I would have decked him too. Like fair. So Hawkeye, Mainframe, and Tony, through Jim's eyes, sees Venom is attached to Normie. And then Tony/Jim strongholds Normie, which triggers the symbiote to attack and defense, which again, fair. And sends Jim, Rhodey, flying and almost crashes into Spider-Girl. May is too late. As Rhodey is extremely rude to Spider-Girl, it's Tony. It's Tony still. It's Tony/Rhodey. Is extremely rude to Spider-Girl, telling her she isn't invited to the fight. No girls allowed other than Wanda, apparently.
Wanda doesn't count.
Wanda doesn't count.
More powerful than else, but that's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, because literally, it literally reads, "You're not invited." But
Tony, you're not 12.
And as again, this is a midlife crisis, Tony. This is straight up midlife crisis, and you can't tell me otherwise.
Yeah.
So anyway, Spider-Girl gets to Normie's office, and we see that the Avengers and Phil and Brenda are kind of in a standoff while Rhodey and Normie are fighting, and J2 is confused because Normie was only defending himself, and it does not require this like standoff situation. There's no reason to charge into battle with other superheroes over this, which Mainframe agrees. And if Mainframe agrees with J2 and Spider-Girl, so you know something's wrong. So Spider-Girl gets in between Normie and Rhodey to stop their fight, and then Normie calls Jim Cape Man, so you know this is going very well. Wonderful insult there. Very, very astute. Very, very smart.
Sorry.
No, it's I literally, when I was rereading it, I read it in Tom Hardy's Venom voice, and it's perfect.
Cape Man.
It's like, trying to save you, Cape Man. It's like, oh gosh. All right. Anyway, Scott wakes up from getting knocked out because he was on Jim's shoulder when Jim went flying. So he just decides to kick Phil in the face. I guess. Like, there's no reason for it. He just does it because he's mad. And then Scarlet Witch calls Normie a murderer, which is really rich coming from her. Like, yes, Venom is a serial killer, but Wanda's really not the one that needs to be throwing stones here. So then Mainframe, J2, and Spider-Girl are really confused. Mainframe keeps telling the OG Avengers to stand down, which was agreed that he was leading the team earlier, but Jim/Tony tells Mainframe that he's listening to a higher power, aka Tony is talking through him and Tony is listening to himself.
Okay. If there's a wrestling reference in here, and I'm just not going to do it.
Do it.
It's me, Austin. I was the higher power all along.
Oh my god. I did tell you to do it. But anyway, Wanda tries to cast Hex. Wanda tried to cast a hex on Spider-Girl because May was literally questioning the adults on how they were acting, and Wanda got offended. And again, WTF, Wanda. And she winds up hexing Rhodey. Whoops. This causes Tony's computer to explode. And again, and then I wrote again, and Wanda's calling Normie a murderer.
Oops.
Like, she,
Right.
like, just so everyone knows, always practice safe magic.
That's pretty funny.
So anyway, Rhodey's stuck in a trance and keeps saying this creature must be subdued and keep Spider-Girl off my back. So things are now, very much worse. And this was already a complete ship show. I said ship, but ship show. It's yikes on bikes. Like, this is just messy. It's just really messy. So Jim is now super angry and crazed. And when Mainframe tries to check on him, Rhodey blasts through him and yells, "Jim Rhodes is dead, murdered by Tony Stark."
Oops.
That's alarming. So then at the fire station, at the fire department nearby, Station 28, Moose stops by to talk to his dad, and they have a heart-to-heart, and then the fire alarm goes off because our mighty midlife crisis Avengers have caused some trouble. So J2 gets up to Rhodey, pretty angry that Jim blasted Mainframe. Jim then says that, Tony Stark murdered him again, which startles J2 because you don't just throw that around.
Whoa, bro.
Yeah, whoa. So J2 asks Rhodey to clarify, and Rhodey does say it again as he punches J2 at full force, sending J2 flying. So Brenda then thinks, oh, I can totally grab this huge juggernaut of a guy in the air, and so they both go down.
That's not lady. That's not a good idea.
But I really appreciate Brenda's enthusiasm. Good job. Brenda's a team player. Scott apologizes to Phil and uses ants to distract Rhodey. Hawkeye tries to subdue the android, but to no avail. Rhodey makes quick work of everything, leaving Normie and Spider-Girl left standing. Spider-Girl says that they need to be smart and run away, and Normie agrees, but pity they're not runners, and May agrees. To be continued.
That's right, to issue 95, but I guess I get to give my thoughts first.
If you have them, we can save it for later since this is kind of a two-parter, but it's up
to you. Briefly, this is a really fun issue. Wanda looks very much out of the Kurt Busiek, George Perez era of Avengers.
Yeah, she's definitely wearing the George Perez outfit.
Yes. Hawkeye, he's blind, or legally blind.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot to write. So Tony equipped him with special goggles, and that's how he can see the symbiote on Normie.
Yes, and then of course Scott. We've seen Scott several times. I really like the cover. I feel like this was very much a Sal Buscema influenced issue, especially when Mainframe when Mainframe gets blown to smithereens, that feels like a big Sal Buscema splash page. You know what I'm talking about? Where somebody's getting knocked halfway across the room, but in this case, they're getting blown halfway across the room.
Well, it's not even across the room; they're getting blown through Manhattan.
Yeah, just big, bombastic, classic Marvel fun. And I'm here for it. This is
the definition of old timers refusing to listen. This could be taglined "Okay, Boomer," which is horrible. I hate that phrase, but it's literally Tony's I had so much fun with my friends during Last Hero Standing, so we're gonna take everything over now. Bye. We're not listening to anybody younger than me. Also,
Yeah.
don't really look at my friend too closely, because he's now my Iron Man, but it's Rhodey.
Yeah, it's really that part's really weird. If just for reference, this is like when All Star Batman and Robin was coming out, as well as The Other. So there was a lot of darkness that was occurring in Marvel and DC at the time.
This is honestly, the story is morbid. Like,
Yeah.
it's one thing for like what we find out in the next issue, but like to find out here that Tony has been speaking through Rhodey this whole time, and we thought Rhodey was a real person,
Right.
and now we don't know what happened to Rhodey, and we know everyone thinks that Rhodey is human, but clearly something's wrong, and he's very clearly like, it's not Rhodey. He's being controlled by Tony. And like I said, since this is a person being controlled by another person that supposedly was his friend, it's very, like I said, it's morbid. And there's a little bit of like, I don't see why Tony seems to think this is okay. Because
it's not.
It's not okay. And I don't think he thinks it's okay. But, I don't have a very high opinion to Tony, and Tony, especially in MC2, has been a bit of a jerk. I mean, he is normally. Yes, Marvel Studios that's literally the way I feel about this.
Neil missed the reference earlier.
Yeah, so it's just, gosh, I don't know. And she does wear the belly dancer costume, like it's the top part of it.
Yeah. She's definitely wearing the corset element. Comics 89 was Tony's always been in a midlife crisis. And when I see the Iron Man movies, I mean, this is fair. Tony Stank is a jerk. So
Tony Stank is a jerk. All right, so
that leads us
go ahead. Yes, because like I said, my thoughts really here is just Tony is the worst. Normie is a giant jerk, and I hear Tom Hardy's Venom whenever Normie speaks.
It's hard not to now.
It's hard not to, but
by the way, did you see the panel?
Normie's words, like just fit that voice so well. Because he's such an idiot.
Right? Did you see that panel I posted on Twitter? I think it was yesterday, of Venom and Ben Reilly's.
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah. Thanks, Don, for doing a caption that. All
right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, all right. So let's go to Spider-Girl 95. The info is April 2006. It was released February 1st, 2006. And the title is "And You Don't Mess Around with Jim." So Normie / Venom / Dusk, whatever he wants to be called, and Spider-Girl are still trying to figure out how to stop Rhodey. And Normie / Venom is starting to get sassy, which doesn't take much out of Normie.
It's a very low bar.
It's a very low bar. Though he does have a point, because May keeps using his real name, and while he's Venomy, and Normie then says so May's like, well, what am I supposed to call you? And Normie goes, I don't know. All the good names are taken, especially the spider-related ones, which is very cute. He wants a spider-related name. But, he knows he doesn't have to be spider-related because he's symbiotic goo. Like, he's wearing an alien.
And I wonder, some of the snarkiness is actually the alien coming through, too.
No, this is Normie.
Okay.
No. I refuse. Well, I mean, it's a bit of both, but I think they gel well with each other. So it's just them being sassy. So anyway, the conversation gets cut short because May needs a hand as she kind of gets jerked around by Rhodey, and Normie tries to come to her rescue, finding a way to jump on Jim's back, and he decides he's going to grow 6 arms to try to beat Rhodey up, and then he makes a very dark, sarcastic quip about maybe he should turn his fists into machetes, which Spider-Girl does not find funny. And, even and even though Normie's like, whoa, chill out, it distracts Normie. And then Rhodey uses his laser fist to get him off of him. And Spider-Girl then has to go save Normie. They really are the dream team and a very dynamic duo. But I don't mean dynamic, I mean dysfunctional. But I really do wish we got more, because this is one of my favorite things of all time, is just this entire scene. Definitely like get issue 95 and read it just for them bickering while they're trying to stop this very, very powerful android, because it's funny and I really wish we had more. Meanwhile, Cassie lets Tony rightfully have it, because all of this is his fault. Cassie asks for a failsafe for Rhodey, which Tony doesn't seem to have for her, and doesn't really seem to have a failsafe for Rhodey. And then gets really over dramatic about Rhodey, saying that Rhodey is his greatest success and most tragic failure. Which, and then I wrote this again, Tony, this is your friend's body you started using like a proxy robot, and there's just something very Jordan Peele Get Out horror vibes from this. It's not okay.
Not okay, Tony. Not okay.
So anyway, back with our heroes. Back with our heroes. Everyone who got pushed down is finally coming to and shaking that off. And so everyone rallies together, and the Avengers are assembled once more, again. Now with a Normie Venom thing, and Brenda and Phil, who I'm pretty sure is very happy about getting to be an Avenger.
He's losing his mind. I mean, it's like I finally made it. Like if we got into Phil, like it's like anime eyes with the hard eyes.
Yeah, no, he's
right now.
He is living. He is living for this. So at the abandoned theme park, that is really a government training facility, Whedon is talking to everybody, asking where is Raptor, and then he realizes Kaine is missing, and he's like, where are my people? And then we see Kaine in an alleyway in Brooklyn beating up some really confused Scriers, because they don't even know who Spider-Girl is. She's not on their radar. And Kaine refuses to believe this and just keeps beating them up.
Snapping their necks, probably, because that's what Kaine used to do. And I mean,
but they're sitting here going, why are you doing this? What? Why? Well,
I'll get into that in a second.
We'll talk about it in the review, about how he basically is fulfilling his prophecy here.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Maybe if he just didn't beat random people up all the time, we wouldn't be in all this trouble.
It's the assassin.
Anyway.
Ring assassin, okay.
Oh gosh, I know, but anyway, so Mainframe gets his new body and comes after Jim, trying to talk him down, but Jim / Rhodey / whatever is going on now is still very much in his hex trance, and basically reprograms Mainframe so he can't transfer to another body. He literally uses, we don't know what's in him just yet, but he uses his cyborg android powers to go inside Mainframe and stop the Lazarus protocol. So Mainframe can't regenerate. At the Avengers compound, Cassie is still trying to get the info from Tony about how to stop his bodyguard. And now Tony has his back turned to the video feed to Cassie for what I assume is just dramatic fashion. And he tells her about his best friend, Jim Rhodes, and how Jim sacrificed himself essentially to be the test subject of one of Tony's experiments, the nanite agenda. Tony was going to test it on himself. No, he wasn't. But Jim beat him to it, and day by day, the nanites evolved Jim into a robot / android / basically not human. Tony admits to Cassie that he can disable the nanites, but the process may kill Jim. Meanwhile, Moose's dad heads out as the fire department has been called due to the fight going on. And as the Avengers are trying to take Rhodey down and at least get him subdued, it's proving really difficult. Tony continues to act super dramatically and talks to himself about what he must do and what his responsibility is, as he doesn't actually do it. He just acts like a drama queen for a second. So then the Avengers get Rhodey down for a bit, and as Normie tries to remind Spider-Girl that he's still wanted by the Avengers and maybe they should head out, Rhodey wakes up and isn't happy, clearly. And then he blasts the Avengers and friends, knocking them all down. But as soon as Spider-Girl and Normie are getting back up, Iron Man makes a fashionably late appearance. He fights Jim and tries to remind him that, he didn't murder Jim Rhodes. That Jim tested the nanites on himself behind Tony's back to protect Tony. Okay. Jim keeps saying that Tony Stark murdered him and Tony must die. And while Tony can't help but talk back about he didn't murder Jim, but maybe it's his fault a little bit. He realized that Jim is still clear-minded, even if he's stuck saying 5 phrases. Jim used the nanites to disable Tony's Iron Man suit, and Tony crashes to the ground. Jim blasts Iron Man down, and Spider-Girl leaps in, using Jim's cape to blind / confuse Jim, and then uses all her strength to punch him, sending Rhodey flying off the roof, which Tony doesn't seem to really care about the collateral damage that will do. But as it almost hits the Station 28 fire engine, Spider-Girl tells Tony she really wasn't worried about Rhodes. She asks Tony if he has anything to help save the day, and Tony says he does, but he's afraid to use it. It might kill Jim. Spider-Girl takes it and webs down towards Jim as Normie tells Stark that he shouldn't have told Spider-Girl that it could kill somebody. Spider-Girl is begging Rhodey to throw the fight, that she really doesn't want to use something on him that could hurt him. But Rhodey is still saying his little hex lines and keeps blasting at everything. He even blasts, it hits a building, and debris falls on a firefighter, which we see is Moose's dad, but May can't see it yet. He was saving innocent bystanders and got caught in Jim and Spider-Girl's crossfire. So Spider-Girl loses her focus because she's now worried about the firefighter who just got hurt. And Jim uses this to basically uses her being distracted to get a good hit on her and destroy the device. Tony then puts all the blame on Spider-Girl, going, why didn't she use it? Why did she hesitate? He literally just told her earlier he didn't want to use it on him. Cool, Tony. And then Normie basically Normie kind of decides that Tony has to be holding something back. That there has to be a way to still stop Rhodey. And so he puts Tony's head in his symbiotic hands and starts searching Tony's consciousness, now that it's shared, to see if there's anything that can be used to help stop Jim without killing him. As Jim starts to stand over Spider-Girl, Normie's symbiote comes to attach itself to Jim and uses himself as a conduit to literally electrocute Rhodey in hopes of kind of like stopping him / rebooting him. Rhodey falls and Normie smells his symbiote burning, which I'm sure it smelled nice. I feel really bad for Normie. As everyone regroups and Rhodey is seemingly on a stretcher, Tony tries to chastise Spider-Girl because she didn't follow instructions. And I wrote Tony needs to shut up, which Spider-Girl says a bit far nicer than I would have in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And as everyone starts to remember that they originally came there to arrest Normie, who is harboring a alien serial killer on him, Normie tells everyone, Raptor's a government agent. I'm in her custody. And, it's very nice getting his fiance's, giving his fiance credit for this.
She's very shocked.
Yeah, she's like, what?
What?
But, even May is like, what does he have up his sleeve here? Like, he wouldn't be doing this without a plan. Spider-Girl then turns to check on the firefighter who got hurt and finally sees that it's Moose's dad. Meanwhile, in the hidden Scrier temple, Kaine kind of causes his vision to come true, as now the Scriers are asking why would Kaine be beating them up and be so worried about this Spider-Girl person. So now they need to get more information on her.
Great, Kaine.
So awesome. To be continued.
To be continued. All right.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on 95?
So my thoughts on 95 are it was a really good conclusion to this story arc. When I first read this back in the day, I really didn't know the context of why this was a story, but having gone through and now read most of the now all the first volume now, and all the ancillary stuff as well, I appreciate this issue even more than it was. But beforehand, I just felt like it was just a good old-fashioned fun slugfest. Tony is Tony, and this is definitely the time of pre-Civil War Tony. And so it's interesting to look at it now because, there's running jokes about Tony Stark being a supervillain. But I really just enjoyed the dynamic of May's world playing such a role. And when I kind of sit back and think about it for a minute, it's really... This was, kind of similarly to the Fantastic Five story. Mm-hmm. It felt like they were trying to wrap up any and all MC2 plot threads, but it didn't feel as heavy-handed as the Fantastic Five issues. So yeah. I thought this was a lot more subtle.
Yeah, I mean, I really like. I do feel like it is kind of slightly tying it up, but also kind of as a nod to this might be the last time we do see some of the Avengers, which it's not, thankfully. But at least that's the way I felt when I first read it, knowing that it was going to end in 100 and we were getting so close. But I think for me, I really, really wish out of these two issues that we had gotten more of May and Normie's dysfunctional dynamic.
Right.
Because they make one hell of a team. They pretty much carried this whole fight against Rhodey. And Normie went toe to toe. Normie saved the day almost single-handedly.
You could have eliminated Raptor and Goblin and probably lesser extent J2, and it probably went the same.
Yeah, and that's look, let's be fair here. What did Phil and Brenda do other than just sit back? Brenda tried. She tried picking up J2 in the air.
All Phil got was a sock in the jaw, so yeah.
But, I mean, it's, to me, they're really funny, and Normie does mean really well, and this is kind of the first time we're seeing this is why he was holding these things so close to his vest. It's very dramatic fashion because he is his father. He is his father's son, after all.
Right.
And it's really a cool thing, even if he doesn't do it. Even if he's not necessarily always. He doesn't do everything in the best way. He's not perfect, and he, especially right now, because he knows that he's very confident in what he can do. Mm-hmm. So he gets very, very arrogant. And now that we know, he's not evil or doing bad things, he literally is just being this smug jerk. Like I said, like it's very much like early Peter,
Right.
where Peter's let's be fair, there's times where Peter can be really mean as Spider-Man.
Yes.
And so,
And
like,
that's the same kid that used to like break all the Spider-Man action figures as a kid. Like, he probably thinks he has, subconsciously he's probably associating Spider-Man with meanness.
well, no. I think so. I really think like this is the thing with Normie is I think he's kind of cut from Peter's cloth a lot.
Right.
Like I think they think really similarly. And then, not that he spent a lot of time with his father, obviously, but he is very much his father's son. And so it's kind of like he's got the good parts of Harry and maybe has been influenced by his Uncle Peter a little too much.
Well, Harry and Peter were goobers, and that's just the way Normie is. Like,
They're dorks. They're giant dorks.
Yes. They're both just giant goobers, and that think that they're cool, but they're really not.
Exactly.
and never have.
No, and that's exactly that. And that's why I think like I enjoy him kind of feeling himself as Venom so much, because one, he is very capable at it. But it's so much fun to watch him be this way, because like when prior to all of this, when he was the man in the chair, he was a lot more subdued because he still had a lot of that guilt from what he did and a lot of like self-hatred. But like here, whatever he's like doing with the symbiote, and this is I think a large part of what the symbiote's doing to him, is it's almost bolstering his confidence, and it's almost kind of bringing him out a little bit, and it's just a lot of fun to see. And I wanted more of that. I feel like we were robbed a little bit. So This is kind of like one of my favorite stories just because of that. Like it's not the story underneath it with Rhodey and Tony is very dark and morbid, and like I said, it's horrific. Like this is horror. This is like psychological, almost body horror. Like this is horrible, but there's a lot of fun in the fighting and a lot of fun in the story, mostly because of the personalities that we're getting.
Right.
It kind of makes it's why I like Spider-Girl so much, because even though we talk about some dark things, there's a lot, there's humor, there's a lot of lightheartedness. It doesn't feel dark, even though there is a lot of dark elements in this world, like all comics.
Exactly. There's still a lightness to it, and that's something that I feel like the MC2 was getting right. They were zagging when everybody was zigging, especially in this time period of when this was released. It was such a breath of fresh air for a lot of people. And that was one of the talking points, of the Save Spider-Girl campaign was this is a comic that you can give to a kid and they can read it and you're not going to feel uncomfortable with them reading it.
Exactly, so, but it's not written like a comic meant for children.
It's not the Marvel Age line that was or Marvel Adventures line that was coming out at the time, where it's written for kids, so it's kind of dumbed down for the kids. Like adults and kids could read this very easily.
Exactly.
That I think leads us to the final issue of the episode, Shadows from the Past. 96. So, issue 96. I have the breakdown. Cover date of May 9th, 2006, released on March 1st of 2006. A lot of releases on the first week of the month. And they just happen all be March 1st.
yeah, I think these were the first week of the month. And if anybody doesn't realize that like March 1st and February 1st are kind of always on the same day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
It is. Unless it's the leap year.
Yeah, that's true. Leap year is an exception. So, Tom DeFalco, Ron Friend, Salvi Sima, the team that has been doing this the whole time. Our issue opens with May swinging to school when suddenly some razor discs are being hurled at her. She stops them from hitting her or anyone else. We have a guy that was comically talking to his wife, apparently, on the phone. but was like, huh? What's going on? So, anyway, she's like, well, maybe this is something about the Scriers. It's a really mean looking doohickey. Like, maybe this has something to do with it. So, we cut to Kaine taking more baddies out, demanding more info on the Scriers. I will talk more about this in a minute. Dark Devil shows up and assists before inquiring why he's so interested. Of course, he's like, what made you think that I was, out hunting the Scriers? And Dark Devil, and without missing a beat, is like, bro, really? Like, all the bodies that you've left behind. You're kidding. So, good job, Riley. Meanwhile, we have Mayday, who kind of circled back around to make sure that there wasn't anything else going on at school. She changes into her civilian clothes when she meets up with Courtney, and Heather and Jimmy are talking about the situation with Moose's dad. And Courtney's very emotional about this. And she's, obviously trying to update them on the situation. I wrote Davita and Jimmy, but it was Heather and Jimmy. Sorry. May is feeling guilty, but is interrupted by Coach Flash Thompson, who has been avoiding Slattery because, he's worried about his job, as we'll find out in a minute. He asks May if she would reconsider joining back up with the team, but May, of course, due to her spider powers, declines. He also makes a note to tell May to have her give a message to her father that, hey, they needs to return his calls and they need to catch up. So May manages to get through the day, but sort of runs into Brad Miller. But before that, Slattery eventually catches up with Coach Thompson. He's not particularly enthused. Megan Brady is watching this all at the same time. So, she's kind of going through the day whenever she runs into Brad. Oh, Brad. Brad Miller, her former crush, who we found out is also secretly a bigot. So after briefly catching up with him, she heads out. He asks her out, and she kind of brushes him off before Felicity shows up to inform May of Flash's real intentions. Flash thinks that Slattery is out to fire him, and Felicity demands that Mayday rejoin the team to help her father out. May, of course, still refuses, and she reminds Felicity that she knows why she's refusing, because, Felicity is obviously in on the secret. She decides to then take off on her patrol, lamenting about her various quote-unquote failures lately. She's still shook up over the visions, so she's still not getting adequate amount of sleep. But May also feels like someone's watching her when suddenly she gets the drop on the Scrier. No, she does not get the drop on the Scrier. Just kidding. It's Felicity in her Scarlet Spider costume. Felicity is kind of seeing, due to May's reaction, how stressed out Mayday is, and she's trying to justify saying, hey, I can be Scarlet Spider, I can help you with your patrols, maybe if I take this load off of you, it'll be, I just want to help you because, if I give you a little bit less stress, maybe you'll reconsider. And so May is annoyed by this because she's like, I'm not rejoining the basketball team. But then, of course, Scrier really shows up. At first, she's swinging around and her spider sense goes off. He's very taken off guard by her abilities, and it turns out he was the one indeed who threw the discs. But he was truly sent to observe and not to kill. May starts to not hold back, and with that, it gives Scrier an opportunity to not hold back either. Meanwhile, Brenda takes Normie to the Whedon hideout, and Quickwire makes it quick about them being criminals, and that Normie is just trust fund baby. The symbiote then kind of shows.
I mean, it's kind of true.
There is some truth to that. Symbiote then shows him who's boss by holding him up and with a little tiny mouth about to ready to eat him. Kind of comical scene. But Normie then puts him down and then decides to discuss the terms of his enlistment. Basically, he wants to join Whedon's team so that way he can protect Brenda. Meanwhile, Mayday is still fighting Scrier. And after she put web in his eye, a la Christopher Daniel Barnes from the 1990 show, it looks like she's got the upper hand when Felicity shows up again and immediately gets put into danger. She uses her spider sense and reflexes to respond and boots him into next week. Mayday being the one booting him into next week. She tells him...
Felicity just wants to help, okay?
Right. Felicity's really trying to be helpful, but it's just not working out. She Mayday tells Scrier that no one is going to die on her watch. However, he warns her of the great battle ahead and tells her that no matter what happens, you can take this small victory because she did indeed fail in her goal. There would be someone dying tonight. Himself. And then he commits ritual suicide. Horrified, Felicity sobs and is shaking. Mayday takes her home. Mayday, tries to comfort her throughout this, but there's no words. They're both shocked about what just happened. But she decides that she needs to face up some of her own failures, and that so she decides to go to the hospital. She's nervous, and she's about talking to Moose, thinking that it was Spider-Girl that was responsible for what happened, but Moose tells her rightfully so that it's ludicrous to think so, as he's one of NYC's finest, and just like Spider-Girl, he runs towards the danger, not away from it. This, of course, inspires Mayday, and Mayday gives him a big hug and a kiss on the cheek right as Courtney shows up with Jimmy. Now, Courtney's had a little bit of insecurity because Courtney, she doesn't understand why Moose is opening up to Mayday and not her. And so she's kind of doesn't know how to feel about the situation. So she's kind of walks off. This takes us to our final scene of the issue, where Raza is being informed of what happened in the day's events. But instead of wasting another Scrier brother, she decides to enlist someone who has a history with the Spiders. A man named Roderick Kingsley, the Hobgoblin.
Really?
Sorry. It's the Hobgoblin, though. Like, come on. Jason Philip McIndoe, A Life from Crime. It's not a favorite. Yeah. It's Roderick Kingsley, the original and best Hobgoblin. So, Kelly, your thoughts on this episode, on this issue?
I mean, it's nice to see Felicity in her costume of choice, even though she really should not be wearing that ever. And I think that because this is kind of showing her like this is what can happen. It's a very traumatic sight. I mean, literally just watch somebody kill themselves, and
yeah,
she, the whole thing with Felicity, she's always kind of thought of this more like a game. It's a very like it's similar. It's a little bit similar to how her mom, approaches things, but her mom does Black Cat playfully because that's the character she's kind of portraying to get your guard down.
Mm-hmm. It's also a different mechanism.
Yeah, well, but the thing is too is Felicia knows, the ins and outs of this business from her dad, versus Felicity has been very sheltered by both her parents. And that's something, and we'll get into it in Amazing too. But the thing is that, you really do get the sense of like, as much as like she's been upset at their divorce, she really, other than feeling lonely and depressed, which can happen regardless, she's never really, they've done everything they can, I think, to protect her and make her feel safe and loved.
Right.
And, she's kind of just been dealing with like teenage angst. Mm-hmm. And here she got a real taste because, she freaked out with Kaine too. But Kaine wasn't, especially now, Kaine wasn't going to hurt her. And Kaine wasn't going to hurt May.
Oh, and Kaine wasn't going to hurt somebody, especially in the costume of his dead brother.
No, yeah. Like, I mean, the thing is that this is her really seeing what, what going out at, in these crazy costumes can really.
I hate using this phrase, but it really is apropos. The reality slap.
Yeah.
That's what this is. And Spider-Man fans know what I'm talking about. Certain Spider-Man fans know what I'm talking about when I use the phrase reality slap. But it really is, in the case of Felicity, she now has to face the prospect of life and death. And
Yeah.
it is a game to her. It's all fun and games until somebody gets hurt.
Well, I mean, I think the thing is like she's now realizing it, but then too, like, you know, just mentally, like that's gonna mess you up. It's gonna mess anybody up, especially a teenager who's never, what it seems like, has never experienced death before. And yeah, I mean, it's horrific, but at the same time, like, you know, this kind of does shape her character, and it's needed to help kind of wrap that up because, you know, Felicity's wanted to be May's sidekick this whole time, and now, you know, now I think, you know, as we know, she kind of starts rethinking that after this. And of course, May is terrified because this is like what, you know, like this is not okay, because it's not. You know, but she's kind of seeing that, you know, the Scriers aren't playing around. Like they're gonna come after her hard and fast because it's her life or theirs.
Yep.
And you know, she wasn't ready for that. She didn't know that part of them. So like I think it's more of like this is kind of, it's kind of showing you the stakes are high.
Yeah, it does a really good job. This issue does a really good job of really setting up the next 4 issues.
Yeah.
The Scriers are a lot of respect, and they could easily fall into parody territory. And
they have a lot of samurai qualities. They have a lot of cult qualities too.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're a secret society cult. I mean, that's what they are. I think that having somebody like Ron Friends to bounce off of with the Falco, because he was the one that did the big twist. Obviously, I mentioned at the beginning of the episode about how they're not just one man, but a whole secret society. Yeah. And I think that they're now leaning into this. And obviously, when we get to Amazing and we get to some of the flashbacks that we'll see, there's a big amount of history between Kaine and Scriers. And there's a reason that Kaine is taking this so personally, and it's very subtle here if you don't know the history. But if you do, you understand exactly why Kaine is very worried about the Scriers and Osborn and all of that. And so it's really kind of cool how this story arc is starting to set up a bit of a full circle moment for May and how this all relates. So I just I loved how the cover is great. I remember seeing this cover and just going nuts. I was so excited.
It's a cover that tells you exactly what's in it.
It's just
in the story.
Yeah, the colors are great. You know, I last few episodes we really haven't talked about much about the art, but the art at this point, I felt like Ron and Sal were at. I'm not saying they're at their peak, but they're in their stride, and I can only say that similar comment so many times without it sounding repetitive, so I've tried to avoid saying it. But the artwork here and the storytelling through the artwork is so dynamic and so well done. And I just they did a great job setting up the exhaustion with May in these few issues. And you know, Kaine is kind of coming for his full circle moment too, because he's like, now you can't be Spider-Girl, because unfortunately a version of his visions come true.
Okay, in fairness,
yeah,
if he had just, you know, chilled out and didn't go on a rampage, this wouldn't be happening.
Right.
So this is kind of a vision of his own making. But yeah. and let's get into this. Hobgoblin's back. Yeah,
Rowdy Kingston.
Yeah, which this this is a foe that May has not faced, and honestly will wind up being, personally to me, her greatest villain.
He is what he becomes what he was intended to be in the 616.
Mm-hmm.
And
he is terrifying. He is terrifying. Like what he does to her, what he terrorizes her with this time, and then through everything else that we see, because
Kingsley,
they're what is it? Their rivalry, I guess, is gonna last. So this was 2006, and the series ended in 20. I think Spider-Girl, the end was
2010.
Before 2011, yeah, 2010.
Yeah.
So this is gonna last another 4 years.
And I will tell you, as basically Kingsley's introduction here sort of justifies the existence of things like Hobgoblin Lives, because, you know, other than the Goblins at the Gate story, you don't see much of Kingsley. Kingsley was kind of off the table because Norman was brought back, and so why have a Hobgoblin when you can just have the Green Goblin in the 616? Well, Kingsley was built up as a badass, excuse my language, and then they never did anything with him. And with Spider-Girl, he becomes the very best of the Stern Hobgoblin run comes to fruition here in the MC2. And so, yeah, Roddy Kingsley is, holy crap, it's just an incredible story. And I remember everybody on the message board freaking out when we saw that cover to 98 of, you know, Ron Friends drawing the Hobgoblin. There's a reason that he shares as much Hobgoblin sketches on his Facebook page and Catskill Comics and stuff like that.
It's I mean, the thing is to me, for most of what I know about the Hobgoblin, most of my stuff has been the animated series and Spider-Girl. And to me, you can't, he really is the best villain for Mayday, in my opinion. He's a perfect foil, but he's also freaking psychotic, and the stakes are always high when he's around. And
Goblin should.
Yeah, and I mean, and too, like, let's be fair here. This series, like, as you know, as much as we've gone through, I think at this point it was like 8 years. You know, as much as, like, sure, it's been 8 years in real time that we've kind of worked through. For May's universe, this has only been a school year.
Yep, because she doesn't have her birthday until next volume. So,
but
has her.
She just had a birthday. But the thing is like, we don't go to the new school year until Amazing. This is towards the end of the school year.
Mm-hmm.
This is a lot for a newly 16-year-old girl to be dealing with, or newly 15. Yeah, 16, because she got her powers at 15. But yeah, it's, you know, this is a lot for her to kind of almost graduate to a bona fide, because, you know, now, like, this is most definitely, she's in the big leagues. I mean, she's been in the big league. She's literally fought
gods,
Legion of Scrolls and
right.
gods. Yeah, beat up Loki, and, you know, now she's got the Hobgoblin, which is one of her father's, you know,
most dangerous foes. And I think my appreciation for Roddy really started here. I liked, and I enjoy, and I loved those Hobgoblin episodes for the 90s animated series. But that was also Mackendale.
Well, too, I mean, Wasn't Mark Hamill did the voice of Hobgoblin in the 90s series.
Yes, and the only reason they did Hobgoblin first was because they already made the toy. But no, Hamill did an incredible job. I read it as Hamill's Hobgoblin, which is especially like his Joker. But it kind of leads to Mr. Comics' question, which is my favorite Spider-Girl villain. I would say nobody. If I was to list a top three, nobody, Otto, or not Otto, Lady Hawk, excuse me, and Hobgoblin. I mean, those would be my three, very easily. And I can't put them in a specific order because it would fluctuate. But those are like the three. And honorable mention be Black Tarantula, I think, is a force of nature. Fabian, we talked about our problems with Fabian, but
yeah. And once he shows up again, because as you see, we're tying things up. He's gonna show up again.
Yeah, as Kelly's internet starts fritzing, she froze. Oh, Crazy 8! I forgot Crazy 8. Yeah, that we lost Kelly briefly for a minute. While Kelly comes back to us, I can move on to the emails. Kelly, you back?
Am I back?
Yes, you're back. Okay.
Okay. So I guess do I get to say my villains, or are we moving?
Yeah, say your villains. I didn't. Yeah, now that you're back, I was going to move on to email until you got back. So.
Okay. I mean, I think my favorite villains are going to be. I like our Goblin Queen, our original Goblin Queen, Alon.
Yeah.
I really enjoy Hobgoblin.
Mm-hmm.
And can I count the Jersey Devil? Because I love cryptids. So
you can.
Okay. Well, no. I mean, really, I would say Misery. I love Misery. I think
Misery's fun. I mean, May has a really good eclectic rogues gallery. It's nice to have the original characters like you're talking about, Fury and Nobody and Crazy 8 and Funny Face. Like, they're really eclectic, nice rogues gallery, and then you add things like Hobgoblin and Black Tarantula that are stuff from her father, and it just colors it even better. So it's not like deliberately making the successors to the various villains. Like there's a few that are legacy villains, but not like intentionally. I mean, Allison, another example, Aftershock. She's a legacy villain, but there was definitely a reason for making her a legacy villain. So we could spend all night talking about that, but we'll get to our emails.
Yeah.
Venkman's is Hackmutter. And I agree, no one has villains like Peter and May. So, all right, so we have an email from Venkman. So it says, "Hello, Kelly and Zach. I'm starting to run out of superlatives to describe how much I enjoy each new episode of Make My Mayday. The last episode was no different. Your discussion of the girl who fell to earth was everything it needed to be. It was so well done, I don't know what else to say. But unfortunately, in that same episode, we found out that there are even more pages of Spider-Girl that were missing on Marvel Unlimited. Once again, concerns that those pages may never be restored are still a possibility. As infuriating as this is, it's not the first time that something like this has happened in media. When the MPI home video started releasing the Journey Brett Sherlock Holmes television series on VHS in the 80s, they inadvertently put out several episodes with 2 to 3 minutes edited out of them. Himself, he didn't realize his childhood copy was missing footage until he started getting the DVDs in college. The good news is that diehard fans eventually convinced them to re-release complete uncut versions of those episodes. If only we could do that with Marvel. Justice for J2. Hashtag. He remembered this time. He knows it might seem impossible, but it's got to be easier trying to fix the mess that is comicsology. Whew, boy, I used that this week, and oh my goodness. This is not from his email. I used Comixology this week, and it was not a good user experience.
That is a whole cluster of insanity, and I would suggest, although it's not Comixology Unlimited, but I would suggest trying to look at other. If you're going to use digital comics, find another digital comic supplier like Marvel Unlimited, Marvel.com.
Yeah.
I think DC.com might still be okay. I know DC was.
I know Marvel was talking about
Comixology.
Yeah. Well, the problem is they're using there as a base. I don't know. I will go on a full rant on this on Spidey Experience, but it is a. We talked a little bit about it last week. But I'll talk about it more next week now that I've actually, used it and talk about the user experience. There's some things I liked and there's some things I didn't. I just think that it was a mistake.
The rollout, the way it happened was a mistake.
Yes.
I think it should have been a series of rollouts with different features each time. That way that they could play around and fix bugs versus like, let's do a total overhaul and screw everybody up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a whole thing, and briefly to say it, I clicked on to buy something, and then I had to go back to the previous screen. I had to make 3 different clicks. The UI is just buggy, and everything that they used to have when they had it as a separate UI and not integrating it with Kindle was fine. It was easy to use. Everything was. There was a system, and now they just broke the system for the sake of corporate safety.
If I'm not mistaken, that update also prevented a lot of countries from using Comixology, where that used to be their only source for some comics.
Yep.
Oh, good job, Amazon.
Certain publishers are having issues getting the indie publishers are having a lot more issues getting their stuff published on time, and it's just. There's a lot of indie publishers that are struggling with stuff like with Diamond, and it's just getting it's bad. But to finish off his email, he just got one line. He says he thinks he's rambled on enough. Take care of ourselves, and until someone slaps Normie for being such an idiot for the last couple of issues, make his Mayday. Sincerely, Vinkman. Thank you, Vinkman, for the email. As always, when you leave us an email, we appreciate it. If you want to leave us an email, you can always do so at makemindmayday@gmail.com. If you send an email, you can always send us an email for the network at SpideyDudeRadioNetwork@gmail.com. Tell us how you like the show and what you like. Tell us what you don't like. We love feedback, good and bad or different. So you can always also go to r/SpiderGirl and talk about the latest Spider-Girl stuff. We have also our Discord page. Our Discord you can find it on the top of spidey-dude.com. Of course, Kelly, got any other final thoughts you want to preview for our next episode?
That's kind of what I mostly have as our preview for the next episode. So we are at the end, because the next episode will be the end of volume 1 / the original 100 issues of Spider-Girl. Like I said earlier, we do plan on taking a break between every little volume. So that way there's kind of a bit of a breather for us. Kind of prevents us from getting a little, not burned out, because I could talk about this all day and would prefer it, but real life ahead, and it makes a lot of sense to kind of take a little extended breaks between the volumes. But we do plan to at least come back in April for Last Planet Standing and start Amazing sometime in May. But the next episode is 97 through 100. We will get to find out why we both think the Hobgoblin is one of May's deadliest foes. We get to see a wedding in the hospital. And
a death.
Huh?
And a death.
And a death. And we get to see a goodbye party. And a lot of things, because it is wrapping it up. And there's a lot of history, I think, that goes in those last 4 issues as well that we'll get into about the fandom. But since that is going to be our, kind of tying up the original series. We do really, really want to hear from you guys. We want you guys to share it. We want everything to be super hyped up and, you know, really end this part of the show with a bang, because this has been a year and a half, and as much as we've chugged along, you know, this is a major thing for us.
It's a milestone.
Yeah.
You know, we're really, I mean, our official, I think, season finale of season 2 of the show, it will be The Last Planet Standing, but really this is the beginning of that season finale. It's kind of a 2-parter, you know, the end of this volume.
I mean, to be honest, to me, it feels like next episode's the season finale, and then like Last Planet Standing is just our little treat for you guys in between our break. And
there may be more. We don't know.
Yeah. Like, I mean, to be fair, like, you know, if somebody wants to come to us and really wants to do a fan panel, like we tried to do in the beginning, or you know, if we've got an interview, or, you know, if there's something special that does happen, we will obviously come back. You know, I might do some things on Patreon, you know, for you guys, but ultimately, you know, this is going to be the end. We're not going to see May's short hair anymore. So, you know,
the end of the short-haired era.
Well, I mean, we'll see it come back, but I don't count that. So, but you know, it's the end of her original run, which is the longest running solo female title for Marvel. Still,
it was the first to ever get to 100 issues without a renumbering in between.
Yeah. And I believe that's going to be a lot harder with the fact Marvel loves to renumber. So anyway, shots fired. But the thing is we do really want to hear from you. We want to see the emails. We want to see a voicemail. We'd love to see reviews. You know, give us your thoughts. You know, let's go ahead and, you know, kind of say goodbye to, or it's never really a goodbye. You can always reread them, but to say goodbye to the original run, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to be able to read it on air after we finish issue 100 and really make that next episode special. So definitely talk to us.
Is an end of an era, and I will tell you it is an end of an era. And I can't believe we've gotten here. But it's also been so fast that it's like, holy crap, we got here. You know,
yeah. And it feels like, almost feels like, you know, when we started, it felt almost like there were times where I was like, are we really going to even finish this? Are we going to be able to keep this going? But we have, and, you know, now that we're here, we still have Amazing. We still have Spectacular, Spider-Verse. We have another run of Avengers and Fantastic Five.
Yeah.
So we're not going anywhere. We still got a lot to cover, and I'm still excited. But, you know, this is a very important thing for Mayday, reaching 100 issues. It's very important for us to have finished the whole series, the whole first half of the series.
Yep.
And, you know, I think it's something we should definitely celebrate.
Yep. And so I think tentatively we got 2 weeks, I think, is the next episode.
Yeah. So we have it scheduled, I believe, for the 10th.
Okay. March 10th. Okay. But as it says on the screen, next episode will be Spider-Girl 97 through 100. The extra-sized, quadruple-sized 100. And then we'll start whatever happened to the daughter of Spider-Man. That'll be
be in May.
ESG. May. So
yeah, because, you know,
it's
May for May.
Yes, and May's a great month. I love the month of May. So, Mr. Comics, we'll be talking to you soon. Vigman, of course, such a great guy. Thank you for all your support that you do. And I do want to also, once again, thank our patrons at patreon.com/Spidey Dude Network. Vigman, Scott, Jurgen, Greg, and our 2 new ones, Phoenician and Kaylee. Kalo. Yeah, I'm hoping they'll respond to me the next few days.
Yeah. I'm sorry if we butchered your name.
Yes. Well, if you've ever listened to any Clone Saga Chronicles episodes, you'll know that I've been doing like a listen through of all the stuff on the network lately, and started with CSC, and I butcher names, and so I am sorry in advance.
We've made the jokes on here before. We don't know English, so
I speak gibberish fluently. But, obviously, thank you. Patreon.com/Spidey Network. There will be more starting in the month of March. We have our new show, or well, not really new show, but our new season of our show, Amazing Spider-Man Classics, going to be debuting in March. We have that will be with Javi and his son Jack. We'll have more Spideywood experience as we end the Beyond era and begin our season 3 with the Zeb Wells Ramita Jr. era in April. So we're wrapping that up. You'll get to hear my thoughts about Ben Reilly and Spider-Man and how that's going to go and beyond. But if you want to listen to Kelly's thoughts on that, you can listen to SpidermanCrawlspace.com and their show. Of course, thank you again for everybody that comments and participates and send us emails and send us voicemails. Be sure to send us a voicemail at 818-925-6631. I promise I will not pick up like I did that one time with Ron Friends. 818.
It makes for a great story. It's fine.
It does. 818-925-6631 is the voicemail line. Be sure to give us your name. Tell us, if you like, tell us where you're calling from. And, of course, keep it under 3 minutes or leave us a second voicemail if you need to finish your point. I will splice them together. Of course, we'll have on audio update. We'll have all the audio episodes up very, very soon. I am diligently working on them, but sometimes systems don't want to work right because, they take holidays. Be sure to leave us an Apple podcast, a Spotify podcast. Be sure to rate us on Spotify with 5 stars. Really would appreciate that. It helps people discover the show much easier. And then, of course, you can always pay attention to our social medias. Spidey Dude Radio on Twitter, at Spidey Dude Network on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Patreon, and then, of course, Make My Mayday on Twitter. Follow us there, and we tend to update quite a bit. Of course, you can like, share, and subscribe here on the YouTube page, youtube.com/Spidey Dude Network. Thanks again for watching, and thanks again for listening. If you're listening to the audio version, we sincerely appreciate it, and we wish you a good night, and we'll see you next time here on Make My Mayday, a part of the Spidey Dude Radio Network.